The Council of Tranquil Waters had not raised their voices in anger for 7,000 cycles. Not once. Not even when the Kravathi hordes devoured 3 of our colony worlds. Not when the merchant guilds tripled their trade tariffs overnight. Not when that idiot from the Helion Confederacy parked his warship directly through our sacred meditation space and claimed it was an administrative error. We are the Velenne. We do not fight. We meditate. We contemplate. We occasionally hum in disapproval when truly pressed. My name is Qora, and I am what you might call a diplomatic observer, which is a fancy way of saying I get paid to sit in uncomfortable chairs and watch other species threaten to blow each other up over trade routes and mining rights. It is exactly as thrilling as it sounds. The day everything changed started like any other boring cycle at the Galactic Assembly Station. I floated into Chamber 7, my bioluminescent skin shifting to a pleasant shade of blue that meant good morning, please do not bother me yet. The chamber was already filling with the usual suspects. The Krathos delegation looking like someone had shoved a bunch of angry crabs into military uniforms. The Cephian merchants, counting their credits before the session even started. The Uran, who always smelled faintly of sulfur and regret. And then there were the humans. Oh, the humans. They had only joined the Galactic Council 3 cycles ago, which in cosmic terms was basically yesterday. They showed up with their weird bilateral symmetry, their unsettling forward-facing eyes, and their absolutely baffling habit of consuming toxins for fun. They called it coffee and alcohol, which seemed like a terrible idea on every possible level. Their delegation leader was a woman named Keiko Tanaka, and she had this unnerving quality of looking directly at you when she spoke. Not through you, not past you, but at you, like she could see every thought bouncing around in your consciousness. It was deeply uncomfortable. Motion to begin, groaned High Arbiter Zell, a Krathos who had been running these sessions since before I hatched. First agenda item, the continued dispute over Sector 47B mining rights between the Helion Confederacy and the Merchant Guild Coalition. I settled into my observation pod and prepared for 3 hours of the most mind-numbing tedium the galaxy had to offer. That was when the alarm started screaming, not the polite someone forgot to file their docking permit alarms. The big ones. The everyone is about to die horribly alarms. The chamber's viewing screens flickered to life, showing a sight that made my bioluminescence flash panic white. A fleet. A massive, bristling, absolutely terrifying fleet of Kravathi warships dropping out of hyperspace right on top of us. This is unexpected, Zell said, in the understatement of the millennium. The Kravathi were not known for their diplomatic subtlety. They were known for eating entire civilizations and using the bones as toothpicks. They had been quiet for the last decade, rebuilding after the Uran Collective gave them a bloody nose in the Outer Rim Wars. Apparently they had finished rebuilding. The lead Kravathi ship opened a communication channel. The face that appeared on screen belonged to Warlord Gregson, who looked exactly like what you would get if you gave a nightmare teeth and anger management issues. Beings of the Galactic Council, Gregson said, his voice like rocks being ground into smaller rocks. You have exactly 1 standard hour to surrender this station and submit to Kravathi authority. Failure to comply will result in the complete annihilation of everyone currently breathing oxygen, or methane, or whatever it is you people breathe. We are not picky. The chamber erupted into chaos. Well, as much chaos as a group of mostly peaceful species could manage. There was panicked humming, aggressive color shifting. One Cephian merchant actually fainted, which I did not think was physically possible for their species. We must evacuate immediately, said Ambassador Thrin of the Uran Collective, his 3 eyes swiveling in different directions. Our defense platforms cannot hold against a fleet that size. We have maybe 20 minutes before they breach the shields. We cannot simply abandon the station, Zell protested. The cultural artifacts alone represent thousands of cycles of accumulated knowledge and history, which will be very comforting to think about while we are being digested. Thrin shot back. Everyone started talking at once, arguing, proposing, demanding, doing absolutely nothing useful. Everyone except Keiko Tanaka. She stood up slowly, her movements calm and deliberate. When she spoke, her voice cut through the noise like a blade through soft tissue. We fight. The entire chamber went silent. You could have heard a single molecule of hydrogen float past. I am sorry, Zell said, his mandibles clicking in confusion. Did you just suggest combat? Against the Kravathi horde? The same Kravathi who have conquered 17 systems in the last decade? Yes, Keiko said simply. We fight. We hold the station. We make them regret they ever pointed their ships in this direction. I watched her with growing fascination. Her heart rate had not increased. Her skin temperature remained steady. She was not showing any of the normal fear responses I had been trained to recognize. It was like watching someone discuss the weather while standing in front of an avalanche. "That is suicide," said Ambassador Gruth of the Helian Confederacy. "We have 3 light defense platforms and maybe a dozen patrol ships in the area. They have a battle fleet. The mathematics of this situation are quite clear." "The mathematics," Keiko said, walking toward the central display, "do not account for creativity, or spite, or the simple fact that humans really hate being told what to do by people who think they can just show up and take things." She pulled up a tactical display. Her fingers moved across the holographic interface with practiced ease. "Their fleet is impressive but poorly positioned. They dropped in too close, probably expecting immediate surrender. Classic intimidation tactic. It means their larger ships do not have room to maneuver effectively. If we concentrate fire on their command vessel and simultaneously deploy our defense platforms in a concave formation, we can create a kill zone that forces them to either retreat or bunch up. Either way, we make them bleed." "And then?" Thrin asked. "Even if that works, which I highly doubt, they still outnumber us 10-1. Keiko smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Then we cheat. Humans are very good at cheating." I found myself drifting closer to the human delegation, my curiosity overriding my usual professional detachment. This was insane. Completely, utterly insane. The Kravathi did not lose fleet battles. They especially did not lose fleet battles to hastily assembled defense forces with inferior firepower. And yet, there was something in the way Keiko spoke, a certainty, a confidence that went beyond mere bravado, like she had already played this scenario out in her head 1,000 times and knew exactly how it would end. "We cannot authorize military action based on the tactical theories of a species we barely know," Zell said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The Council rules require unanimous agreement for defensive operations, and we have never, in recorded history, achieved unanimous agreement on anything." "Then maybe it is time to try something new," said a voice I did not expect. High Counselor Mirra of the Velenne had stood, my own species representative. Mirra was ancient, even by our standards. Her bioluminescence had faded to the pale silver of extreme age, and she rarely spoke in council sessions anymore. Everyone turned to look at her. "The Velenne have watched the galaxy tear itself apart for millennia," Mirra said, her voice soft but carrying easily through the silent chamber. "We have believed that peace could be maintained through patience, through understanding, through waiting for wisdom to prevail over violence. And where has that gotten us? The Kravathi are at our doorstep demanding surrender, because they know we will not fight back, because we have never fought back." She turned to face Keiko directly. "Perhaps it is time we learn from a species who understands that peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the willingness to stand against those who would destroy it." My bioluminescence went completely white with shock. Had Mirra just endorsed military action? The same Mirra who had once meditated for 6 months straight rather than vote on a trade sanction. "I vote to accept the human tactical plan," Mirra said firmly. "And I propose we place Keiko Tanaka in operational command of the defense." The chamber exploded again, this time with actual debate rather than panic. Species who had not agreed on anything in decades suddenly found themselves forced to make a choice: fight or flee, stand or surrender. The vote took 7 minutes. By council standards, that was faster than light speed. It passed. Barely. But it passed. Keiko did not waste time celebrating. She was already coordinating with the station's defense coordinator, a thoroughly overwhelmed Cephian named Jax, who looked like he might pass out from stress. "Get me a direct channel to every ship captain in range," Keiko ordered. "I do not care what species they are or what flag they fly under. If they have weapons and a working engine, I want them in this fight." "But the protocols," Jax stammered. "The proper authorization forms, the chain of command, are meaningless if we are all dead in 40 minutes. Keiko interrupted. "Move." Jax moved. I watched as Keiko transformed the chaotic collection of council representatives and station personnel into something resembling a coordinated military force. She spoke quickly, efficiently, breaking down complex tactical maneuvers into simple, actionable steps. She anticipated questions before they were asked. She identified problems and solved them in the same breath. It was like watching an artist work. A terrifying, potentially suicidal artist, but an artist nonetheless. "Observer Qora," Keiko said suddenly, looking directly at me. I jumped. Wall floated suddenly in a startled manner. "Yes, I need your help." "I am an observer," I said quickly. "I do not participate in. I need someone who knows this station better than anyone," she continued. Someone who has sat through thousands of hours of council sessions and paid attention to every boring detail. Someone who notices things. She was right, I did notice things. It was literally my job. What do you need? I asked, my better judgment screaming at me to stay out of this. I need you to tell me every non-standard system on this station. Every maintenance tunnel. Every emergency protocol. Every piece of equipment that might not be on the official manifests. I hesitated for exactly 3 seconds. Then I started talking. Because even peaceful species, I realized, could choose when peace was worth dying for, and when it was worth fighting. 18 minutes until the Kravathi deadline. I had never moved so fast in my entire life. My tentacles were practically a blur as I pulled up schematic after schematic of the station's infrastructure, pointing out systems that most people had forgotten existed. There, I said, highlighting a section on the lower decks. Old terraforming equipment from when the station was first constructed. It was supposed to be removed decades ago, but the paperwork got lost in commit. The atmospheric processors can be overloaded to create a massive electromagnetic pulse, not enough to damage our ships, but it would scramble targeting systems for anything within 2 kilometers. Keiko's eyes lit up. How massive, potentially catastrophic if not properly contained, which is why it has been sitting dormant for 70 cycles with 16 safety locks on it. Perfect. Can you override those locks? I felt my bioluminescence shift to anxious yellow. Technically, yes. Legally, absolutely not. I would need authorization from at least 4 different safety committees. And Qora. Keiko's voice was gentle but firm. Can you do it? I looked at the tactical display. The Kravathi fleet was tightening formation. Their weapon systems were charging. In less than 20 minutes they would start firing, and no amount of committee approvals would matter. Yes, I said. I can do it. Then do it. And Qora? Thank you. She turned back to the command station, barking orders to Jax and the rapidly assembled defense force. I watched her for a moment longer, then activated my mobility pod and headed for the lower decks. The corridors were chaos. Personnel running in every direction. Emergency sirens wailing. The air tasted like fear and recycled oxygen. I passed a group of Cephian civilians trying to board an evacuation shuttle, only to be turned away because it was already full. Their desperation was palpable. What were we doing? This was madness. The Velenne did not fight. We especially did not sabotage our own stations using equipment that had warning labels in 17 languages. But Mirra had voted for this. Mirra, who was wiser than anyone I had ever known. And Keiko, this strange human who had been in the galaxy for barely 3 cycles, seemed to know exactly what she was doing. I reached the terraforming bay and overrode the first security lock. Then the second. By the time I got to the 8th, my appendages were shaking. The comm system crackled to life. All stations, this is Tanaka. Status report. Voices started coming through. Ship captains confirming positions. Defense platforms reporting ready status. It was actually happening. Species who normally could not agree on lunch were coordinating a military operation. Qora. Keiko's voice came through on my private channel. How are we looking down there? 6 more locks to go, I reported. But there is a problem. The containment field generators are old. Really old. If I push them too hard, they might fail completely. What happens if they fail? We lose atmospheric integrity on decks 12 through 15. Anyone in those sections would have about 90 seconds to evacuate. There was a pause. I could hear Keiko breathing, thinking, are those decks currently occupied? And checked the station manifest. Mostly storage and maintenance areas. Current occupancy shows 43 individuals across all 3 decks. Get them out. Priority 1. I will send security teams to assist with evacuation. Once those decks are clear, you are authorized to proceed. And if the evacuation is not complete before the deadline, another pause. Longer this time. Then we do the best we can with what we have. But I am not sacrificing people for a tactical advantage. Clear? Clear. I coordinated with station security, and within 6 minutes all 43 individuals were moved to safe zones. My appendages were flying across the control panels now, disabling the remaining safety locks. The terraforming equipment hummed to life, its ancient systems groaning in protest. Electromagnetic pulse is armed and ready, I reported. I can trigger it on your command. Stand by. The main view screen in the terraforming bay showed the tactical situation. Our pathetic little defense force had arranged itself in the pattern Keiko specified. 3 defense platforms forming a triangle. The dozen or so ships we had managed to scrape together positioned at specific coordinates that I did not quite understand the logic of yet. The Kravathi fleet loomed like a wall of death and bad decisions. Attention, Council Station. Warlord Grixon's voice boomed through the comm system. Your hour is up. I trust you have prepared your surrender." Keiko opened a channel. When she spoke, her voice was calm, almost conversational. "Warlord Gregson, this is Commander Keiko Tanaka of the Terran delegation. We have considered your offer very carefully, and we respectfully decline." I could almost hear Gregson's confusion through the comm, like he could not quite process what he was hearing. "You decline? Do you not see our fleet? Do you not understand the situation you are in?" "Oh, we understand perfectly," Keiko said. "You have more ships, bigger guns. You probably had your victory speech already prepared. But here is the thing about humans, Warlord. We have this really annoying tendency to fight back even when the smart move would be to surrender, especially when someone threatens our friends." "Friends?" Gregson laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You have known these beings for 3 cycles. They are not your friends. They are convenient political allies at best." "Maybe," Keiko agreed. "But they are our convenient political allies. And humans take that kind of thing seriously." The channel cut off. For exactly 5 seconds nothing happened. Then the Kravathi opened fire. "Now, Qora," Keiko said quietly. I triggered the electromagnetic pulse. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The terraforming equipment screamed as it discharged 70 cycles worth of stored energy in a single devastating burst. The pulse radiated outward in a sphere of invisible electromagnetic chaos. Every targeting computer on every Kravathi ship within range went completely haywire. Their first volley, which should have been a precisely coordinated bombardment, turned into random spray fire that went wide in every direction. One shot even hit their own ship. "All units, fire at will," Keiko ordered. Our tiny defense force opened up, focused, concentrated fire on the Kravathi command vessel, exactly as Keiko had planned. The beams converged on the ship's shield generators, overwhelming them through sheer concentrated force rather than raw power. The command ship's shields flickered and died. "Target their bridge," Keiko said. "Make it count." 3 defense platforms and 4 ships unleashed everything they had. The Kravathi command vessel's bridge section exploded in a brilliant flash of light and debris. The entire enemy fleet hesitated, just for a moment. But in space combat, a moment was everything. "Second wave, engage," Keiko commanded. Ships I had not even known were in position suddenly appeared, dropping out of stealth runs and hitting the Kravathi formation from angles they had not been watching. It was beautiful and terrible and completely insane. Gregson's second-in-command took over communications. His voice lacked the confidence of his predecessor. "This is not possible. You do not have the forces for this kind of operation. Humans have a saying," Keiko replied. "It is not about the size of the dog in the fight. It is about the size of the fight in the dog." "Congratulations, Commander. You just found out how hard we bite." The Kravathi tried to regroup, to bring their superior numbers to bear, but Keiko had predicted every move. She had turned the battlefield into a maze where their numbers became a liability. Ships collided trying to maneuver in the tight space. Friendly fire incidents cascaded through their formation. It was not a fair fight. It was a masterpiece. "They are breaking formation," Jax reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "Multiple ships are showing engine signatures consistent with retreat preparation." "Let them run," Keiko said. "But make sure they understand the cost of coming back." One final coordinated strike took out 2 more Kravathi destroyers. The message was clear. The Kravathi fleet retreated. We had won. The station erupted in celebration. Cheering. Crying. Species who had not shown emotion in public for generations were openly weeping with relief. The Cephian who had fainted earlier woke up just in time to faint again from shock at the news. I floated back to the command center in a daze. My bioluminescence was cycling through colors I did not even have names for. We had actually done it. The Velenne, the galaxy's most peaceful species, had just participated in a military victory. Keiko was surrounded by grateful delegates, but she caught my eye and gestured me over. "That terraforming equipment," she said. "Is it salvageable?" "Maybe 60% of it. The rest will need complete replacement." "Good. Because I just had a thought about how we could use similar systems for long-range sensor enhancement. If you are interested in helping, of course." I stared at her. This human, who had just orchestrated an impossible military victory, was already thinking 3 steps ahead. "Why did you do this?" I asked. "You barely know us. Your people have no strategic interest in this station. You could have evacuated with the others. Why risk everything?" Keiko smiled. That same not quite nice smile from earlier. "Because someone had to. Because the Kravathi needed to learn that the galaxy is not their personal feeding ground. And because..." She paused, her expression softening slightly. Because when I joined the Galactic Council, everyone treated us like dangerous primitives who would probably blow ourselves up before we figured out faster than light travel. Everyone except the Velenne. Mirra was the first person who talked to me like an equal, like someone worth listening to. That meant something. She looked around at the celebrating crowd. Besides, humans have a saying. You stand with your friends, no matter how long you have known them, no matter the odds. You stand. High Counselor Mirra approached, her ancient form moving slowly but with purpose. She looked at Keiko with something that might have been approval, or respect, or possibly the Velenne equivalent of a smile. It was hard to tell. You have taught us something valuable today, Commander Tanaka, Mirra said. Peace is not weakness, but neither is it passivity. Sometimes peace must be defended. Sometimes it must be fought for. Sometimes, Keiko agreed, but only when necessary. And hopefully, after today, it will be a little less necessary. The Kravathi will think twice before threatening Council space again. She was right. Word of the battle spread through the galaxy at light speed. The Kravathi, who had seemed unstoppable, had been beaten by a hastily assembled defense force led by a human who had been in the galaxy for less time than most species spent on vacation. It changed things. It changed how people saw humans. It changed how the Velenne saw themselves. It changed the balance of power in ways that would ripple through galactic politics for generations. But in that moment, standing in the command center surrounded by species who had learned to fight together, who had learned that unity could be forged in the fires of necessity, they realized something profound. The galaxy had not chosen to stand with humanity. We had chosen to stand together, and that made all the difference. 3 cycles later, the Council voted to establish a permanent joint defense force. The motion passed unanimously. Mirra cast the deciding vote with what I swear was a knowing look in my direction. Keiko Tanaka was appointed as the first Supreme Commander. She accepted with typical human grace, which is to say she made a joke about the uniform being unflattering and got immediately back to work. As for me, I was promoted from observer to strategic coordinator. Apparently, knowing where all the forgotten terraforming equipment was hidden counted as a valuable skill. I still attend council sessions. They are still mostly boring. But now, when someone suggests that violence is never the answer, I think about Keiko standing in front of that tactical display calmly planning the impossible. Sometimes peace requires warriors. Sometimes wisdom requires courage. And sometimes the most peaceful species in the galaxy needs to learn how to throw a punch. We are the Velenne. We still prefer meditation to warfare. We still seek harmony over conflict. But now we also understand that some things are worth fighting for. And when the time comes, we will stand together with our friend, no matter the odds, because that is what you do when you finally understand what peace really means. You defend it.